Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the LG Ultrafine 5K display and see how this specific monitor has been holding up the last few years. Now, this thing came out originally many years ago, and what I will tell you is, it's not that old. I don't want to give the impression. It's still a very beautiful display. We've gotten a few successors, if you want to call it that. We've kind of gotten like that, cinema display from Apple, and we also got another cinema display from Apple. I guess more of like a pro type of display, which is the XDR display. And I personally think that this specific display is still a very good monitor, and it is actually my main display I use every single day. For any monitor uses that I use, I have some other monitors, but the one that I plug my, MacBook in directly, this is the one that I use, and I love this MacBook and I love this monitor so much, and they make a great duo. Now, one thing I want to tell you is if you want to pick up this monitor, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of this monitor. Now, obviously, we can't hit on this monitor without hitting on the price tag, and this is probably one of the bigger differences that I've personally seen. The big thing to keep in mind with this monitor is that it is a $1,299 monitor from LG. It is basically a $1,300 monitor and over that plus tax and everything like that, and that kind of does put this specific monitor in a very weird spot. It's not a cheap priced monitor. It's gone not really that much in value either. I spent quite a bit of, not as much as $1,300, but I did spend a little bit of money on this monitor as well, and it was kind of a lot for a specific monitor, but I knew that I was going to keep it forever. And even now I still have no reason or have no idea in the future of upgrading this monitor. But keep in mind that price tag, there are other monitors out there that give you very similar experiences. They're just not, I would say, as great of a monitor as this thing. Now, on the outside, it is a 27-inch display. I personally think this display is really good for its value. It's 5K, or it can go up to 5K. If you use macOS, you can kind of tailor it down, up and down, basically to whatever you want. But the reason why I even chose this monitor in the first place was because LG teamed up with Apple to basically make that iMac display, but just a monitor itself. And the reason why I actually kind of tailored to that was because I was using my 5K iMac, and I was thinking to myself that that was probably the best display I've ever used. There's obviously better displays after that, but at that time, that was probably the best one that I used, which was beautiful. Now, on top of that, you do have a kind of a thick bezel around it. That's kind of the big thing that's been kind of going on recently. A lot of people will pretty much look at this bezel and just kind of assume that it is like the thickest bezel they've ever seen. And I don't know if that's quite the case. I don't think it's that bad. And honestly, even if it was thicker, like my 5K iMac bezel never really bothered me either, because I was just looking at the display. You kind of get accustomed to it. It's almost like looking at the wall and then thinking to yourself, oh, this like wall is like getting in the way of the monitor. Or like it just kind of blends in. You just kind of forget about it, right? I don't really complain about the wall that much. I'm not really going to complain about the bezel. Now, if I was carrying this monitor around, that'd be different, but I'm not really doing that. So it doesn't really bother me at all. On top of that, I like how this thing has a webcam built in. Even though it's not like the best webcam of all time, I still think it's actually pretty decent. And I will say the microphone built in as well, like it just gives you a really good, I guess, capable machine when you're just plugging something in. It's just no frills. You just plug it in via the Thunderbolt port in the back and everything works fine, which is something that I actually really do like about this specific monitor. Now, there's nothing on the sides really. You have a fan built in, which is cool, and you have a very plastic stand. Now again, I'm not even the first one to complain about the way this thing feels or looks or anything like that, but I will say for every once in a while that I do kind of touch this thing or that I bring it up and down on the stand, I do kind of remember how cheap this thing feels. And for the price tag that it is, I kind of do feel like LG and Apple could have done a little bit of a better job. Now on the back, we have a very interesting setup here as well. So we have the AC adapter, which we can go and just plug in our power and power up our specific monitor. But we also have 4 different ports. We have basically 3 USB-C ports and a Thunderbolt 3 port. Now, this is my biggest complaint, right? I love how all these ports work and they're USB-C and you can plug everything in, and very fast charge speeds from what I've tested. Every time I've kind of done anything with this LG monitor, it's been perfectly fine, and I like it because all the I/O, everything has worked out perfectly fine. But my only complaint about this monitor is that there is not a, daisy chain capability that you have here, unlike the 4K LG monitor, the LG 4K display, which I find very weird. How can can LG go ahead and make a display like the 4K one and not bring that feature over to the 5K one. They don't even have to have this one upscale to 5K. They can just downscale it to 4K. Maybe you can daisy chain it to 4K if you can, or whatever the case is. I would much rather prefer that, because right now I'm in this situation where if I wanted to get a LG monitor that do it like daisy chains, I have to choose a completely different monitor, which is pretty much not what I want to do at all. And with this one, I mean, I do like the fact that you do have the capability for the most part of going through and you can go around some ways here and there. Like personally, I use my 5K iMac and I pretty much use the universal control mode, which is really nice, but it still would have been nice had I had literally the same exact monitor as this, but having the ability of daisy chaining it. But since ownership, that has really been my main complaint. I have not really seen myself complaining too much about this monitor really for any other point. I mean, it's been pretty much perfectly fine in my specific opinion. Now, some other things that some people have mentioned, again, the build quality, it's not really the best, and that's probably the big thing to keep in mind too. If you're somebody who wants a really good looking monitor and you want it to just perform extremely well in terms of, the capability behind it and having features and all those things, this is definitely not the perfect monitor for you, but it works out very, very well for people who are coming from iMacs. And that's exactly the use case I was coming from. It's a monitor that might be a little bit pricey, but if you're always plugging in, if you're plugging it into a different iMac, or if you're plugging it into your MacBook, the perfect user would be somebody who just needs a display like a 5K one that's going to be there for years and years to come. I would say for the next 10 years, this monitor is still going to be very, very relevant. Just like how I see that, cinema display, this, XDR one that Apple made, how that's going to be here probably for 10, 20 years as well. Once the hardware starts phasing out, then obviously that's what's going to end up happening. But for the last few years, many people, like all of the complaints have kind of leveled out, and there doesn't seem to be some like widespread, error right now where this monitor is like going bad or there's faulty parts or anything like that. The monitor will probably end up lasting longer than the machine in which it's powering. So throughout me using this specific monitor, I've already went through 2 different MacBooks. I went through my, M1 MacBook Pro, the 13-inch model. I kept that for a while and I love this monitor with it. And now I have my M1 Pro MacBook Pro, the 14-inch one, and I don't plan on upgrading this thing for years and years to come. And as long as my LG 5K display is working, I don't plan on upgrading that either. So I will tell you, for the price tag, you are definitely getting what you're paying for, but this is still, I think, an overpriced monitor. I think all monitors are kind of overpriced for what you're getting. I feel like this one, if it was like $700, like that's a way better deal. But for over $1,000, that is a lot of money to spend on this type of monitor. It's a very good monitor. It's going to stand the test of time, but I will say the build quality is one of those things that kind of throws me off. I like the speakers on this thing. I like the cameras on this thing, but I'm not somebody who's freaking out about those things all the time. So I will tell you, if you were just one like a plug and play kind of, design, this is a beautiful monitor, and I think it's definitely going to get the job done. And I plan on keeping my monitor even after I upgrade my MacBook Pro, which I don't plan on doing either. So in terms of that kind of covers it up here. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.